There is a psychology in which the truth of something, whether or not I'm saying the truth, depends on how many people like what I said. So the more popular what I say is, the more truthful it must be. And the more unpopular what I say is, the more untrue it must be. So I'll give you a scenario. Let's just say I got invited to a church. They'd like to discuss the divinity of Jesus, and it's a huge evangelical church somewhere. And there's thousands of people sitting in the audience in the stadium, and I'm sitting there on stage with a pastor, and we're talking. And I present the Quran's point of view. And every time I mention that we do not believe that Jesus is divine, the entire crowd started booing. The entire crowd is in an uproar, let's just say. And actually, I find that Christians are far more civil than that. But I'm giving you a hypothetical situation. Now let's flip the script. We're in a Muslim environment. There's a crowd of 50,000 Muslims, and there's a Muslim and a Christian sitting there. And a Christian wants to make the point that Jesus is divine. And every time he says Jesus is divine, the entire crowd goes, Astaghfirullah. And every time the Muslim says something about the oneness of Allah, the entire crowd goes, Takbir! And there's a huge roar. You know what that does? The crowd and the energy of the crowd is supposed to be now validating that this person is saying the truth. And the discontent of the crowd is supposed to be invalidating the arguments of the other. But actually, a crowd and their emotions and their uproar and their anger and their rage have nothing to do with truth and falsehood. It has to do with where their loyalties lie. That's what it has to do with. So it's not a fair position for me to be put in that place with an audience that doesn't agree with my worldview, and so I'm getting booed. And it's not fair for a non-Muslim to be put in that place, where Muslims are clapping and screaming in favor of the Muslim argument and booing the non-Muslim argument, because that's not a fair conversation anymore. It's intimidating. It's creating intimidation. So what we learn from that is sometimes if you are going to stick to your principles and speak your truth and not be derailed by an individual, then you will find that that individual, whether they're at your workplace or in your family or some other situation, their next move might be to turn a lot of people against you as a loyalty test. If you're loyal to me, then you're against him. I can't believe you're still siding with him. I can't believe you're still listening to him. I can't believe you're still talking to her. And they'll take this seriously, that person? So they want to alienate that person, and they want to create a mob against them. And if they can't do it openly, they'll go one by one and make phone calls and messages and make sure there's an entire squad being pulled away from you and towards them.
One way of thinking about scales is to think about standards. For example, back in the day, you put a kilo or a pound or whatever it is on one side, then you put the rice on the other side. And as soon as they balance out, that means this equaled this standard. But that kilo, wherever you go, or that pound, wherever you go, is the same exact weight because it follows one exact standard. The same thing happens with measurement, right? A meter is a meter is a meter wherever you go. Or a foot is a foot is a foot wherever you go. These are standards. And everything else is measured against standards. That even happens in your studies, doesn't it? The kids that are in school or university students, there's a minimum requirement for you to pass. That's the standard. If you don't meet that minimum standard, you're not going to pass the class. And everybody is judged according to the same exact standard. Similarly, somebody wants to join a team. You know, they want to get into sports, get into the basketball team or the track team or whatever else. There's a minimum standard of athletic ability. You have to go through certain trials. If you're good at this, if you do a minimum of this, if your free throw average is this much, or you can finish a lap in this much time, then you can move to the next round or move to the next qualifier. These are all standards in life. Everything we do, every time we make a judgment on something, we need standards. Let's take the example of a classroom. You know, there are all kinds of kids in a classroom. I used to teach third grade math a long time ago, all manner of children, and some children are very mathematically inclined. They can do the entire multiplication problem in their head. They don't even touch the paper. Other kids are solving 3 times 8 on 4 pages of paper and they still can't solve it because it's to them, it's like harder than nuclear physics. It's difficult for them. They're artistically inclined. So not all children are the same. They're not. But the curriculum and the educational ministry and, you know, the Department of Education, they say, well, it doesn't matter whether you're artistically inclined or mathematically inclined, whether you like math or don't like math, you better get a minimum of this score or you're not moving on. So they're all given the same exact standard. Some people, like, we have Arabic students in our program here. Some students came here, they have a lot of knowledge of Arabic already. They know Arabic, maybe they're from an Arabic family. Maybe they studied Arabic before, and some don't. So now when I'm teaching a lesson, and other asatidah are teaching a lesson, some of them have a much easier time because they have background. Some of them also have an easier time because Allah made Arabic easy for them. I've had students before that I've taught Arabic, and after a year of teaching them, I can testify Allah did not create them to learn Arabic. They can learn anything else, but they just not for them. And that's not because they're not intelligent. These are intelligent people that are highly qualified in their professions. They can speak languages they can write in languages that are not even human. They're programming languages. And yet Arabic, they cannot make heads or tails of it. They just can't do it. It just doesn't work for them. They are people of different aptitudes. But when it comes to standards, we're all the same. And that kind of seems unfair. Why should, and that student who works extra hard, I'll tell you a true story. One of my students worked extra hard. I mean, this guy, there was not a break that he took a break. In the break, he was doing the work. After school, he was doing the work. And he was friends with me before he was a student. So I would call him and say, hey, you want to go play some basketball? No, I want to study Arabic. It's like, but I'm your teacher and I'm telling you we can play basketball. No, I want to study Arabic. And he failed every test. Every test. And he did not quit. He kept studying, he kept working, and he did not do well. He barely got through. Barely got through. And I can testify that there were students in that same class, in the same year as him, and even future students, that were far better at Arabic and put not even 1% of the work that he put in. According to the academic standard, one receives the certificate, one does not receive the certificate. But in my eyes, I have far more respect for that student than I've ever had for any other student. Because I know the effort he put in. I know the hours he put in. But that standard doesn't really get him a job. That standard is not really very impressive. It's just in my heart for him. He can't really use that anywhere else. He can't say, well, my teacher really appreciated the effort though. I mean, I got an F, but he really respected the work I put in. You should ask him how he feels about me. Nope, that doesn't really help anybody in this world. On Judgment Day, however, these scales are different. Allah will not just look at the quantity of my deed, what I did, what I scored. There's every factor taken into consideration. Every factor. What was I good at? What was I weak at? What did Allah make easy for me? What did Allah make hard for me? And for every one of us, that's a different set of standards, isn't it? Now think about this ayah. فَأَمَّا مَنْ ثَقُلَتْ It's not مِيزَانُهُ ثَقُلَ مِيزَانُهُ قال ثَقُلَتْ مَوَازِينُهُ He said for every single person, for anybody for whom their scales, plural, scales, became heavy. One person, many scales. One person, that's not one person, one scale. In the zahir of the ayah, it's one person, multiple scales. So why would one person need multiple scales? We could just have one giant scale, put all the deeds on it. But actually you can think of the scales in this ayah as standards. You were given a different life than other people. Your parents are different. The family environment you grew up in is different. Your personality is different. You have a very hard time controlling your temper. Your friend has a really good control over their temper. Your brother is very calm and you're very excitable. Now, if Allah made you less capable of controlling your anger, and Allah made your brother or your sister much more calm. So on Judgment Day, when your brother and your sibling, who's very calm, is about to be judged, hey, you didn't get angry. Yep, I didn't get angry, and they should get rewarded. But you controlling your anger was a lot harder for you, wasn't it? That was a lot harder for you. Allah will take whatever, capacity He gave you. Because if they had 100% threshold for holding their tongue or controlling their temper, and you didn't, and you were about to punch some guy in the face, and all you did was, and that's all you did, by everybody else's standard, you lost your temper, but maybe Allah says, actually, I knew what you were going to do. And in comparison to what I gave you, that's a pretty rewardable deed. You held yourself back. You held yourself back pretty good. People are going to be given different set of standards, different scales. This is so important to learn because you should not be comparing yourself to anybody else.